Everybody, welcome to Snow Talk. Brian Good here on this Tuesday. A lot to discuss. Let's get right to the snowboard. First off, the first chance of anything of sort of wintry in nature looks to be a rain to snow potential with an upper low around the 27th, and then maybe some snow chances. I could see that as a couple waves pass through here till the end of the month, but again, it's so far out I can't really tell what is significant and what is not. I can just tell you the pattern is turning colder, obviously, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about the short term, though, because we do have this front moving in today. The front is going to allow for a slight drop in temperatures for this afternoon. We've already seen that in Bedford. They're down to 53. We're at 62 here in Louisville. So we get another maybe an hour or two of this warmer weather before we start to see the slide the other way. Otherwise, the rain will be very spotty as the front passes into the area, but it is doing so. As we look at the wider setup, one thing that will happen later on, the front that is moving through, it is snaked all the way down here into Louisiana and Texas, and there's a new low developing right here. So what it's going to do, it's going to take this cold front that's moving in, change it into a warm front, and then push it right back northbound into our area along with that low. That'll be Thursday. So while it's trying to figure out what it's doing down here and reversing the front, we will get a break in the action, and that'll be tomorrow. But it won't last long. And then further to the west, which is a little more of a potent system that has been on the maps for 2 weeks now, it seems like. We've been tracking this wave, and whether or not it's going to be a significant one for the eastern seaboard or not, it still looks to be a decent wave. It's a little less progressive than what it looked like when I was looking at this last week, but having said that, there is a couple of things that are interesting on it. First off, there is a lead low. We call these meso lows a lot that develop on the warm front side of this as we head into Sunday. We've got to watch that for maybe some stronger thunderstorms. I'll show you some of the data on that in a second. And then the actual, though, will then move right on top of us, keeping us rainy, wet, and windy. Typically, an upper low like this, it reminds me of March of 96, where we got cold enough to have a decent snow. In fact, we picked up over a foot of snow under an upper low, very similar to this. But it just gives you an idea of how warm it is. There's just not even enough cold, even aloft, for it to pull down to take advantage. At least that's the way it's looking out. So this looks to be a cold rain kind of a setup. I know you snow lovers are all upset and booing, but let's look at that lead wave on Sunday, that first one ahead of that main low there. We see the vortex form right here into northern areas of Mississippi around Memphis, and then it ejects itself right over Bowling Green as we head into Sunday midday, early afternoon, and it keeps on going into Indiana. That kind of a track can really intensify the directional shear, especially, and with lapse rates indicating that we'll have at least potential for some decent lift as it passes through. It is a bit concerning, especially when you look at helicity really being maximized here on the eastern side of that board as it passes through. Change in wind direction with height is the main concern here. Instability, though, will be lacking, and there's not a lot to really work with here. But the shear, the dynamics with this little low, this Fort Low on Sunday, are impressive, and it's worth watching. So this is not a setup of hyping here. I'm just trying to let you guys know that is just a feature we are watching, and we'll just see how it looks in the coming days. And baby steps, right? But it's a potent little feature, to say that, to say at least, on the data so far. All right, then we get into the colder air. There's that upper low. You see it there. It moves on by the few days after that low on Sunday, and then we get the colder air moving in toward the end of the month in February. When you look at the indices, the EPL has really been our kicker, in my opinion, to keeping us certainly on the warmer side. It's certainly in positive territory. It's going to get back to neutral, almost negative, but neutral. Kind of iffy. We'll take it, though, because we need to get it way out of this high positive range. PNA starting to trend neutral and positive. That's good. That's a good sign. NAO is, kind of flip-flopping here, back and forth. Different model runs. We're taking it negative, some taking it back positive. We need to get it negative to get a good blocking pattern, but we'll see how that plays out. In Arctic Oscillation, same story. It's been a back and forth in different model trends on how displaced the cold air is going to be. But at least we can tell by looking at the stratosphere warming here, the northern half of the hemisphere. It's hard to see where we all are. Here's Kentucky. You're right in here. Here's the North Pole. When you have the cold up here into near the North Pole, that usually indicates a warmer pattern for us. We want it to get warmer up there aloft. That pushes the colder down into lower altitudes, and sure enough, by the time we head toward the end of the month into February, we see it warm, stratospheric warming across the North Pole into northern Canada, and that should translate to a colder pattern for us in the lower 48. And when you look at the Rossby waves, I'm still a big fan of this Max T1, if that's the one in the members you want to look at the most. it's a bit slow on this drop that just took place. It's a bit slow on the warm-up that just is now happening now. And notice there's not much happening in the short term until by the 24th and 25th, which would be that low I was just pointing out. And then another stronger one tries to pull us down after that. And when you look into February, there's a signal for it the first week of February, and moderate signals toward the middle of the month, but certainly a stronger one for the last period here, February. So that is interesting to see, to say the least. So winter is coming back, guys, but how it evolves and just how cold is it going to get, and does that mean snow or not, I can't answer those questions. I can just tell you the pattern is more favorable for back to a winter regime. But between now and then, it's certainly going to be more of a spring kind of a setup, and thunderstorms we'll need to monitor.